It's a failed government project that ultimately cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Tonight, News 13 investigative reporter Larry Barker digs into the story behind New Mexico's notorious dirty deal, Oñate's folly.
This is a prime example of a project going wrong.
Essentially, it's a major waste of state funds.
It's a total loss. It should never have existed.
It's a multi-million-dollar compound surrounded by a low wall and a locked gate. There's no sign, so most tourists who take the scenic route to Taos drive right on by it. But glance to the right, and you'll get a hint to what this place is all about. Rising above the northern New Mexico prairie stands a larger-than-life bronze statue of a Spanish conquistador. And nearby, an ornate 7,500-square-foot Spanish colonial building. Welcome to the Oñate Monument. But don't look for any visitors. Tourists haven't visited here for years. In fact, the last time a crowd gathered here was the monument's dedication 2 decades ago.
We really do appreciate all of you being here for this wonderful, wonderful occasion.
Today, the rousing speeches, the cheering crowds, and the Oñate Monument are long forgotten.
So here it sits, locked and empty. The only reminder of the long-gone memorial is the imposing statue. Today, it represents not a place of honor, but rather a monument to waste, backdoor politics, and a reckless abuse of power. It's a case study in governmental misconduct, and it shows how our elected politicians squandered more than $2 million. The Oñate Monument and Visitor Center was a bust.
Oh, absolutely. Complete bust.
Dr. Robert McGay is a retired history professor and project director for the Oñate Monument.
It just was built, and there it was. That was the end of it. It never functioned according to the original purpose.
To understand what happened here, you have to go back to the 16th century. That's when Spanish conquistador Juan de Oñate rode into the northern frontier and named himself New Mexico's first colonial governor. But Oñate was a ruthless overlord. He committed unspeakable atrocities, murder, slavery of women and children, and the amputation of the right foot of Acoma Pueblo men. Fast forward to modern times, to Rio Arriba County State Senator Emilio Naranjo. In 1991, the senator decided taxpayers should honor the controversial Oñate in a grandiose way.
The senator proposed a world-class monument dedicated to Hispanic culture and history. It would bolster tourism and the economy. There would be a museum, a visitor center, and a majestic statue. Over the course of the next 15 years, Senator Naranjo lobbied legislative colleagues to fund his pet project. As a result, lawmakers funneled more than $1.3 million into the Oñate Monument.
Rio Arriba County chipped in another $700,000 or so, and the feds topped it off with a $375,000 check. Famed New Mexico sculptor Sonny Rivera was tapped to create the project's centerpiece, a $120,000, 10-foot-tall bronze statue.
I feel proud, and I feel very lucky that I was chosen as the artist to do it.
The statue was unveiled to cheering crowds in 1993. Governor Bruce King made a speech, and so did then Congressman Bill Richardson. But it was Emilio Naranjo who was the star that day.
Because in northern New Mexico and the United States of America, it is a great honor to give respect to Juan de Oñate.
When you add it all up, taxpayers shelled out an estimated $2.4 million for a statue, an ornate building, and a staff to run it. The only thing missing was visitors. You see, the politicians spent all that money building this place, and then lost interest. The center was opened in 1994. A few years later, it was quietly shut down.
From the day it opened its doors,
Yeah.
did the Oñate Monument Visitor Center ever operate as it was intended to be?
No, it never did.
In fact, the only notable event to occur during the monument's brief operation was an act of sabotage. In the dead of night, vandals severed the statue's right foot as a symbolic protest to Oñate's brutality. A replacement foot cost taxpayers 10 grand. Through the years, the monument has been home to a charter school, a flea market, and a yoga studio. Everything but a cultural center.
It was a pork barrel project that got its approval based on politics and not based on, in my opinion, benefit to the estate.
Former State Senator Bill Davis was one of the few members of the legislature to oppose the Oñate project.
And this particular Oñate project is a prime example of a project that was driven for political considerations. The people voting for it were driven not by a benefit to the estate, but by a benefit to their personal interest.
That money was wasted.
State Senator Pete Campos has been an outspoken critic of the legislative process that funds projects not based on priorities, but rather politics.
Resources have gone to projects that don't serve the public need. What we're seeing are empty buildings, statues, parks, and other things like this, where the resources have been put to bad use.
And it's not just Oñate.
The state of New Mexico is spending hundreds of millions of dollars too often on non-essential items like doggy drinking fountains, statues, sculpture gardens, instead of essential needs like water systems and roads and bridges.
Fred Nathan heads up the nonpartisan think tank Think New Mexico. Nathan says it's time to take the politics out of pork.
There's billions of dollars of need out there, of urgently needed critical public infrastructure projects that aren't getting funded so that we can fund these more political projects.
Senator Naranjo died a few years back. His dream project stands today as a monument to waste.
Do you think the Oñate Monument was Emilio's last hurrah?
It would have been if it had been successful, but since it wasn't successful, it wasn't much of a hurrah.
Larry Barker, KRQE, News 13.
Want to lease some prime New Mexico real estate that includes a towering bronze statue and a slightly used visitor center? Contact Rio Arriba County. Meanwhile, a bill to completely overhaul New Mexico's legislative infrastructure spending is pending in Santa Fe. We have posted a link to Think New Mexico's proposal for you on our KRQE app. And